Alright, so the question is. No, it's okay. I just got to remember to turn my computer, otherwise. Okay, you can read it to me.
Okay, over x minus 6 minus the quantity of x plus 4 over x plus 5 equals 3x plus 7 over x squared minus x
Minus 30. Okay. Rational expressions, dealing with fractions. You could get a common denominator on the left-hand side, and then it's a proportion. Actually, if you get the common denominator, you'll probably find out that it's the same as this over here on the right-hand side. So if the denominators are the same and the two fractions are equivalent to each other, then the numerators are equal to each other, and you would solve. Or you could just go ahead and eliminate the, you could, all right, let's factor this. If you factor this, how does that factor? X minus 6 and the quantity x plus 5. So if I multiply everything by that common denominator, so I'm going to multiply both sides, which on the right-hand side says, or the left-hand side says I'm going to use the distributive property. But when you multiply by those common denominator on both sides of the equation, you'll notice that the quantity x minus 6 cancels. So that leaves you with the quantity x plus 5 times the quantity 2x minus 5 minus the quantity x plus 5 cancels in the second term. So you were left with the quantity x plus 4 times the quantity x minus 6. And on the right-hand side, both factors of the quantity x minus 6 and the quantity x plus 5 cancel, so you're left with 3x plus 7. Okay, so now what you have to do is do the distributive property. So I'm just going to focus on this first part that I'm going to put in black brackets. And what do you get when you multiply that out? Why I started with what appears to be a 3. So you're going to have 2x squared. This becomes 2x squared. The outer becomes negative 5x, and the inner becomes plus 10x, which is going to leave you with plus 5x. And the last multiplied together is minus 25. So I'm going to take that value, and I'm going to subtract from it this second quantity, which I'm going to put in blue brackets. And if you multiply that out, you get x squared minus 2x minus 24. Are you okay with that? Josiah, you can come up in front if you would like. Did you meet everyone yesterday? No. Josiah Zigger. No L in there. There's Riley, Caitlin, Hallie, and Jay. Cassidy will sit over there.
There are 2 sets of twins.
Okay, so from there, we'll just go ahead and distribute the negative sign through. So you get 2x squared plus 5x minus 25 minus x squared plus 2x plus 24 is equal to the 3x plus 7. If you group like terms together, we have an x squared plus 7x minus 1 equals 3x plus 7. Where do you go from there? Yep, set it equal to 0. So I'm going to have x squared plus 4x minus 8 is equal to 0. And from there, now that you have the quadratic, you could do what? The quadratic formula, you could factor, or you could complete the square. How many for completing the square? That's what I thought. What about -2? Oh yeah, -2 people want to complete the square, just like 4 out of 3 people are bad at fractions. All right, so factoring, can you think of how that factors very easily? You're going to have 8 and 1 or 2 and 4, and the signs are different. So there's no way that you're going to end up with 4, which says that I'm probably not going to have integers for answers. I'll probably end up being some fraction or irrational number. So or imaginary, it might be a complex number. So as we go through, yeah, you can use quadratic formula. Do you know the quadratic formula, Josiah? No. Okay. Should we help him? X equals -b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. He's like, you guys are weird here. Quadratic formula, we put to Pop Goes the Weasel song, and I remember it. So x is equal to, so your a is your coefficient of your x squared value, b is the coefficient of x, and c is the constant. So as we go through, x is equal to -b, which is going to say -4 instead of +4, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is -8, all over 2a, which is 1. So if I solve, do you know how to complete the square, Josiah? Okay. So we get -4 plus or minus the square root of 16 plus 32 all over 2. So as we simplify, x is equal to -4 plus or minus the square root of 48 all over 2. Simplify your radical, plus or minus 16 times 3, so you get 4 radical 3 all over 2. Take a 2 out of each, and x is equal to Now, one thing you would have to do for these particular problems is check by putting it back into the original problem to make sure you don't get division by 0. But that's not going to happen because you have an x plus, or an x minus 6 and an x plus 5. So you should be good to go with your denominator value. Did my sub work through problems yesterday?
Not really. We altered them. Just really fast. We were just in the zone.
Another problem?
Number 9.
Number 9. Number 9, graph the set. X is an element of the reals such that the absolute value of x plus 2 is greater than 5. And graph that on the real number line. So you're talking about a number line. Look at our number line. And our thought process is to think if that was just an equal sign. And that's going to come up with the critical points for us. Now, if you remember, they go back and they have an A and they have a C, and they say you're either going to find 5 and -5 and go 2 on both directions, or find 5 or find -5, one of them, and then go 2 both directions, and there's your critical points. Or you go to -2 and you go 5 both directions, and it gets really confusing. So to find those critical points, as I mentioned, because of calculus, if this said the absolute value of x plus 2 is equal to 5, then we know that this value in the absolute value sign is either 5 or negative 5, right? So we're going to let x plus 2 be equal to 5, and we're going to let x plus 2 be equal to negative 5. If it were equal to 5, x would be equal to 3. If it were equal to negative 5, x would be equal to negative 7. So that gives you two critical points. As I mentioned before, the reason I was throwing it out a few different ways is because that's where the confusion occurs. Do I go here and go 5 on both sides, or do I go here and go 2 on both sides? Where do you go? So we look at it, and our two critical points would be negative 7 and 3. Does that work? If I put negative 7 in here, I get 5. Is that greater than 5? No. So if it doesn't work, what are we going to have? An open circle. If you put 3 in there, 5 is not greater than 5, so that does not work. That's an open circle because that would be if it were equal to. Now you have 3 intervals. One interval is from negative infinity to negative 7. The other one's from negative 7 to 3. All of these exclusive because it's not including it. And the last one is 3 to infinity. Pick values within the interval. I always like to start here because I can find 0. If you put 0 into the problem, you get the absolute value of 2, which is 2 is 2 greater than 5. No, so it does not work in this interval range right here. Not going to happen. Pick a value greater than 3. Pick a value in this interval set. 5. 7. The absolute value of 7 is 7. Is that greater than 5? Yes. So that works. And if I come over here, negative 10. Negative 10 plus 2 is negative 8. The absolute value is 8. 8 is greater than 5. So that value also works. And there's your graph right there. That's A. There's A. What if I ask you to graph B? If I go to part B says it's the same information, right? The only thing now is that it says that the absolute value of that quantity x plus 2 is less than or equal to 5. So I still have those two critical points, being negative 7 and 3. Does negative 7 work? Yes, because it says equal to, and that gives you 5, and that's equal to 5. So that becomes a closed circle. Does 3 work? Yes, 3 makes it a true equation, so we make that as a closed circle. We pick those values again. Does 0 work? Yes. We know that it's going to be the interval between them, and you have part B. Just say it, by the way, over here I have there's graph paper over here, there's small graph paper, drawers, so if you have one little drawer. This is scratch paper if you want that. They actually have done enough proofs that you see those. I'll touch you.